Good morning, everyone. I'm Karen Trivett, and I'm an associate professor and head of special collections and college archives here in the Gladys Marcus Library at the Fashion Institute of Technology, which is part of the State University of New York. I'm pleased today to bring to you another episode of our oral history program, which is called FIT Talks. Today is November 13th, 2019. And it is exactly 10:20 in the morning. We are in special collections here in the library, and I'm very happy to welcome our guest today, which is Professor Camille Block. Welcome, Professor Block.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and talk about FIT and how I got here and what I'm doing now with FIT.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm just going to dive right into our set of questions. So for context, if you will, please tell researchers a little bit about your childhood.
Okay, well, my childhood, I grew up on Long Island, and I was always enamored with New York City. And I wanted to be a dress designer because I used to read comics, and my favorite one was Winnie Winkle, and she was this woman that went around with her sketchbook and looked so great, but I was always into drawing, sketching, and then I had my little dolls, and that was my thing. I was into ballet and playing the violin, but I wanted to be a designer.
Yeah.
You know, that's how it started.
Cool. So as a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, again, I wanted to be a designer, a dress designer, and I was also, at the time, babysitting for the kids down the street, and the mother was an art teacher. Oh. And she really pushed me to say, well, if you want to design, you have to know how to sketch really well. And she said, you know, buy the New York Times and whatever else, the Daily News, I think it was. So I would like rip out the illustrations and try to work like that.
So those were fashion illustrations?
Yeah, that was fashion illustration. But I was always doing stick figures, and my mom would say, they're so skinny. Why are they so tall and skinny? I said, I don't know. And this was way, way back then.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's look way back and let's talk a little bit about your formal education. Tell listeners what that was like.
Okay, well, that was great too. I went for an interview, I guess it was 1965, and I got into FIT, and it was only 2 years when I went. And when I graduated, I thought that was it. I got my associate's degree in fashion design, which I absolutely loved. I mean, we couldn't wear jeans then. It was a whole other world. FIT had one building, the dormitory that I stayed in.
Oh, wow.
And my mom even said, you're not going to commute. I'm going to make sure that you stay in the dorm.
Very cool.
And then, are you going to come home on weekends? Sure. And I go, are you kidding? That's when everything happens in New York on the weekends. So it was great. And then many years later, I got my Bachelor of Arts at Empire State College in fashion design, but I took photography, journalism, and I did a lot of writing courses too.
Nice.
And then all these great courses that I started teaching later, well, before I got the degree, that enabled me to use those credits to get my degree.
Very good.
So yeah, it was great.
So we've talked a little bit about your education. What was your first job?
Well, my first job out of FIT, or even before I started, was a company called Porterhouse, and they did a lot of dresses and blouses, and I was hired to do their sketching for that, little brochures, nice. And I modeled in the showroom, things like that. So that kind of got me right in, and they wanted me to start with them right away when I graduated, but by then I was into other things, and I said, I'm not ready. One of those major mistakes in life that you make. So I don't know where my career would have turned. That would have been sportswear and stuff, but I ended up in lingerie. But I'll go into that later, I guess.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit more about your career trajectory.
Well, my career, I had started out on 7th Avenue. I went from blouses, then I went to coats and suits. I was modeling in the showroom there, and I did a lot. It was a lot of sketching. So this was like early 1968, something like that. So one day, all the guys in the back, the pattern maker says, Camille, come in the back. We want to show you what you've been doing. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, you see all these garments? These are yours. I go,
What?
I was like, oh my goodness.
That is
And I'm
so
only being
awesome.
paid, what? But it was really great, and that's when they were doing the cutting, when they'd stack the fabric up really high, and they did all the
Right.
hand cutting. And they said, this is your coats and suit line. And I knew no one told me anything about that.
Amazing.
Yeah. But then after that, so that was kind of short-lived, but it was modeling, sketching. So then I went to another job doing dresses and sportswear. And then along the line, I said, let me try this, let me try that. And then I said, let me try lingerie. I heard they're really nice in Madison Avenue. And it just kind of clicked because it was nicer there. 7th Avenue was kind of cutthroat then. And of course, it was way different then. But I found a little home on Madison Avenue. And then from there, I started accelerating in my career, where I started doing, I was doing patterns and everything for sleepwear. And then one day, I got a call to go interview for Vanity Fair.
Oh,
Not the tissues and not the magazine. It was the big lingerie company.
nice.
So I did, and that's where my major career started.
Oh, wonderful.
So that was
How long were you with Vanity Fair?
almost 15 years.
Amazing.
So I started more as a merchandiser designer, and I became director of product development.
Wow. What would the typical day be for the director of product development?
Well, I had a boss that was wonderful, and we were doing a lot of private label under the umbrella of Vanity Fair. So we were kind of like attached at the hip. So we go to all the shows together. We started traveling to Dusseldorf, Germany, and Lyon, Paris. It was just great. So she was kind of grooming me all those years. But I was doing patterns, and then I had assistants. I was always good with the sample makers, and it was just a wonderful family.
Yes.
And then one day, Linda Wagner from Warner Co. came calling. So I jumped ship. I went there. So it was like, can you stay for a couple of weeks till you're finished? And then everybody found out I left to go to a competitor. I had to be out like in an hour.
Oh my word. Oh my word.
So yeah, but that was a little over 2 years, and that was good. And then I went on. Well, I was vice president of designer merchandising there. I did all the Victoria's Secret lines.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, and in those days, Victoria's Secret was not the behemoth they are now. So they started coming to us at Vanity Fair first to do all their lines. And then they'd work with us. They said, well, you'll do the panties, and so-and-so will do the bras. And where'd you get that leopard fabric? And I said, I can't tell you that. They, Camille, you could tell them, it's okay. So, so we did the catalog, and then we did the retail. And then when I went to Warner Co., it was flying to Victoria's Secret in Ohio on the company jet. The first thing she said was, do you have a passport? We're going to Mexico in 3 days. I said, okay. So it was that kind of 2-year thing where it was crazy, but I loved every minute.
Yes.
And then I did some other things. I've done consulting. I became senior VP of Gelmart. Then I went to Ariella. So this is like a 45-year career.
That's
So
impressive.
I've done so many things. Then I wound up at FIT, and I'm still doing consulting. And one day someone said, do you want to do a fashion course? It's called Fashion Speak in continuing ed. And that was in 2003. So that was phenomenal because I had to use the archives here in the garments on the racks.
Oh, yes.
And talk about all the, like collars and cuffs, everything like that. And kind of explain, because the people that would be in these classes would be going on to, maybe they'd be in photography. I had a Rockette once. I had
Wow.
the whole group from The Gap came. It was just great, and I'd be showing all the garments from the rack and explaining everything. And that was part of the course to be a stylist or a image consultant.
Okay.
And that's still going as we speak. And I'm doing that online now. They said, would you do that online? So, wow. To do that online was amazing, to get that whole thing going.
I would think.
So I love that. And I have students from all over the world that,
Oh, how
yeah,
wonderful.
online. So it's not real time, but it works pretty well. And then maybe about 5 years ago, they said, well, you do lingerie and bras and swim. How about getting a course together for continuing ed?
Yes.
And I said, Yeah, sure. So a few of us got that together, and now I'm the facilitator over all those courses. And so I act as kind of a mentor as well to students that want to take the course. My one course, SXL 100, describes the whole certificate program. So is it really good for them? How many classes do they have to take to get the certificate? I talk about the teachers, the work that they're going to do. And, you know, I don't like to push it on them, but I say it's going to give you a well-rounded, you know, for your resume that you can do all this information. Because you might have your degrees in other things, but this will give you a well-rounded information to present to your future boss. A lot of them want to start their own lines. So I do that too. I help people that come to me and want me to start. I have little factories here in the city that I work with. We do the patterns, and I'll do their manufacturing, so that's good.
Wow.
I love it. I love everything I do, actually.
Yeah, I can tell. It's wonderful.
That's great.
Let's reflect back a little bit on your student life here at FIT.
Okay.
What do you recall about the teachers you had, whether it be for your
back
associate's
then?
degree or your bachelor's degree?
Well, the teachers back then were very, I'm trying to remember now, they were very, very wonderful. And I remember having my sketching teachers that were great, and especially my draping teachers. That's very important of the courses that we took. You know, science and things, that wasn't my thing, but you know, we had to take fabric courses and textiles, and now I talk a lot about that in my classes. And then when I got my bachelor's degree, again, it was a different type of I would go into class, and then I would do a lot of things online on my own. Then I had to write my thesis, and that was a whole other experience.
My goodness.
So that was good.
What, may I ask what your thesis topic was?
Yes, I compared Chanel to Donna Karan.
Oh, wow.
And all about the color black.
Oh, wow. How suitable. That's
So I
awesome.
really, really got into that.
Well, I can see why. And so you've said how you've come to work for FIT.
Yes.
But tell us a little bit more about FIT as an environment to work in and how that's changed over time.
Oh gosh, it's really changed. So when I came here, like I said, it was only like a dormitory across the street with the archway,
Yes.
the main building. And that gave me the opportunity, and I told everybody, I said, New York City's my campus. I said, I use everything. I might see a wrought iron fence and use that as designs, you know, some of the swirls in it. I'll go to the museums, I'll do that. I'll go down to the East Village. I mean, all that's happening now again, and I had the first go around with it.
Yeah.
So, and I'll tell my students about the East Village, and I said, yeah, it's a while ago. They're bringing all that back, the 70s, everything. So I kind of experienced that, and I just loved it. And I would tell my friends, we'd go upstate to New York. They go, well, it's a real campus. I said, well, I've got the city. And then they'd say, well, my friends would go, well, what's your majors in? I said, well, it's design and pattern making. They go, oh. They were like, what's that all about? But,
Right.
you know, I'm still going. And so back then it was, like I said, and still now you still use it as a campus, but now you've got so much information.
Yes.
And it's almost overwhelming. I tell my students that they could go to the library. There's trend forecastings.
Oh, yes.
I mean, if you look at all that, your mind is so full of it. Then we had no phones, no computers. I mean, like nothing. And that, it was harder. So if you think about it, it was really harder then.
Oh, yes.
But we didn't know it.
No, you made do
We did with
had
what we
available
could.
to you.
Right, but now, I think all the new resources, all the collections that we have here, the archives are just phenomenal. You can go and get a book on any designer you want. They've got archival Vogues and all the magazines, as well as the women's wear dailies that I hate it, but you know, it's all on digital now.
Right.
I like paper. I like to look at my paper.
You're preaching to the choir, as they say.
So
Since
it's
we are
just-
in special collections.
Yes, and then when I do my classes in the showing the racks of fabrics, and then now the clothing, with my bra classes, I bring them over here to show them all the old corsets and bras, which they're like, wow, you know, it's really cool.
yeah.
To show them like boning and corsets and little corsets for little kids in those days, it's
Oh,
amazing.
Yeah. It is crazy.
You know, talking about whale boning versus spiral boning and plastic and things like that. It's really cool.
Gosh.
So I love it.
So, how would you describe your teaching philosophy when it comes to interacting with your students and what you hope to leave them with and send them off with?
Well, I do have a syllabus that I came up with, but I'm always aware of what's going on. So when I come into my classes now, like my bra class, I go, so what did you see in the stores today? I'm always like adding something else. Or last night I gave some papers out about retailing now and how the retail environment's so changed. So I feel that's part of it. Because I'll say to them, where's the white space? Who are you designing for? And I get them to think a bit. And then the one day a student said, well, Camille, how does it get to be from a pattern? But how does it get to be the pattern? I said, oh, you want to know how to drape. So then I said, oh, well, okay, I'm going to show you. I'm going to do demonstrations how to drape. I do a little quick one, and then I put it on my table. I start with the pattern making, and they said, oh.
Wow.
And all the bells went off in their head.
Yes.
Because I teach students that are really adults. They've gone through their maybe degrees. They're down from Wall Street. They might be a dancer. It doesn't matter where they come from, but I have to take it like they know nothing about lingerie and swim. They just know that they want to do something different. They can't find anything out in the market as it is, so they want to do something for themselves. And that's when I say, well, it can't be just for you. Where's the white space? Who is going to be your consumer, your customer? So you have to think about that.
Yeah.
And how many, the steps that go into that. And I like to I've placed many students as interns, and now they've got jobs. That makes me so fulfilled that I did my part to get them into the industry. And yeah,
That's
so
sort
it's
of
great.
an FIT legacy, is that connection
Right.
to industry, both on both sides of the
Right,
desk.
right. And there's a lot of
Industry.
different, there's a couple clubs that I belong to that also
Oh,
push
nice.
that along.
Very cool.
Yes.
What would you say has been your inspiration with design? Have there been particular designers or department stores or other influences?
Well, my favorite store, Barney's, is
Oh.
gone. So that broke my heart. But there's been a lot of retail stores that have gone, Bendel's, when it used to be in the day of Geraldine Stutz.
Exactly.
And I would go in there, this little shop, the little street of shops.
Yes.
That was amazing. And it was on 57th Street with the doorman. So I was always inspired by that. I even had a little collection of little disco bags that once I said, I want to do these little bags. They bought them, they put them in the window, and I said, okay, that's enough. I did that.
Oh,
I tried to do it, I did it. I said, okay, stay with lingerie, but that was good.
Oh.
And I just love different designers. I always, when Donna Karan came out with her 7 Easy Pieces, I just said, I've got to have that. So
Yes.
wonderful. And even now, it's still around.
Right.
And just the look, you have to find your own look and go from there. You know, it's all about style and things. So I always kind of kept to my own look, and you have to stay true to that. I think that's how people have to be.
No.
Yeah.
So, since you've been at FIT, what would you say are some standout experiences while you've had your tenure here at FIT?
Oh, as far as teaching?
Yes.
Just again, I gave one of my students an A+, which normally we don't do. And it was just because her work was so outstanding.
Oh, wow.
But it was in continuing ed, so it wasn't like a credit
Right.
thing. But to this day, we're friends because it just went along. So I've nurtured her, and then she got her master's in graphic design.
Oh, wow.
And then I hired her at one of my positions to do the graphics. So there we became working partners in something. I just think that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what because I never had that many mentors. Well, I had some teachers, but it was more like I wish I had more of what I have now, what I give when the clubs that I have rose to help all these students at FIT. And we didn't have that in those days.
Right.
So I'm really proud of that.
I'm sure the students are very grateful.
Yeah, and then they belong to the clubs, and I see them there, and they just kind of blossom. And we're able to help them with internships and jobs, and I
You
think.
mentioned these clubs.
Well, the one of them is called the Under Fashion Club,
Oh,
and I'm executive vice president of that. But I've been with the club since the 70s, and I've been on the board of directors, and then pretty recently I became EVP, and we give scholarships to FIT students.
fantastic.
It's amazing. We have a whole group called SAGE, so it's about scholarships and internships, and we have programs where we've given thousands of dollars. I'm going to something tomorrow night about
Wow.
to the foundation. So it's come full circle.
Yes.
And everyone in this club is in lingerie, their own companies. There's Comar, Wacol, every lingerie you could think of. And then
Right.
people that work, designers, merchandisers, pattern makers. So we really promote the club, and it's promoting the students.
Yes.
And we do give to other schools, but FIT is our main benefactor here. And we have this wonderful thing called the Femi Dinner coming up in February. And we've interviewed students already in the lingerie class, and they'll be making garments. They'll be getting major scholarships and money.
Do you
for-
envision making use of the new exhibition space at all over at the Pomerantz?
I'd like to look into that
Yeah.
because after this, I'm going to another meeting on strategy and how we can bring the club forward
Very good.
and to make it more inclusive for more categories. So maybe like swimwear and men's underwear, because it's kind of all together.
Yes.
And we really want to help many more people.
Very good.
Yeah.
What person would you say has had the most positive influence on your life?
Well, my mom,
Yeah.
she really totally backed me when I went to FIT, and my father as well, but my mom was the one that said, you're going to stay in the dorm. I don't want you commuting, because my father really wanted me to go back and forth on Long Island, a 2-hour commute each way.
Yes. Oh,
She
my.
said, no, no, no. And she was just wonderful and kind. She was an operating nurse.
Oh.
And I don't know how I became in fashion, but I know her relatives were painters, and I think that's where I got some of my artistic abilities.
Nice.
But she was my main source of inspiration.
Very good. What book influenced you the most, if you could identify a title?
Okay, I've read so many books on Chanel, but Coco,
Yes.
you know, I just buy so-and-so, I don't know who, but I have so many books I read
Yeah, yeah.
on Chanel, and, you know, I've read Sylvia Plath and all these things, but the Coco Chanel books, I mean, I'm always reading so much between Women's Wear and New York Times, and
Right.
I'm just trying to absorb everything, and I'm reading books all the time, then I'll put it down, then I don't pick it up. But all my books on Chanel, I can zip through.
Yes. What are your future plans?
Well, I intend to keep working as long as I can.
Yes.
I don't use any R words. Because I love what I do, and I feel I have so much to give and still put out there, helping students, working in the industry, getting people started with their own companies, and living in New York City, and then traveling more. Because my husband and I traveled all over the world, and
Nice.
you know, sometimes you just can't do as many trips as you want, but more traveling, and, you know.
Yeah.
I live in the city, and I use it.
Of course.
Keep using it, right?
Absolutely. What would you like for people to remember about you? And you can frame that either within the confines of FIT or a larger universe.
Well, basically, that I was a good person and kind-hearted. And then maybe someone out there would say she influenced me to go into fashion, and she really helped me along, and she was my mentor, and that makes me feel good that I did my work. But just a good, because I always felt, do unto others,
Yes.
you know, so
Exactly.
that's my mantra. And sometimes people say, Camille, you're too nice. I said, that's me, I'm sorry, I just can't.
That's
I
a
try.
position I'll always try to take.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, I know you came equipped with a lot of notes. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you'd like to talk about?
Well, the other thing, You didn't ask me about my clubs, but that's my volunteer work.
Yes.
So that's the one club. The other club is Project Help Us Give, which is another one dear to my heart. And I'm president of that club. And we just had our big fundraiser last Wednesday. We raised over $200,000 to give to NYU Langone Health for the Rusk Rehabilitation and then at Hassenfeld Children's Hospital. So we honored 2 ladies. One was from the industry, the swimwear industry. One is from Intimates. So we had people like Waco there and Komar and just people that support through the years that we've honored. And it was just wonderful.
Well, congratulations.
It was just so great. So we're going to give all the money that we raised at a Christmas party early December. And this is helping all the kids in the wheelchairs, and we go to baseball games with them in the summer, and we bring them to Broadway shows. We have their health, their food activities. They did a whole camp activity for a week where they make these little camp things, like a fake campfire, and the girl was playing the guitar. And so I do make a lot of time for that. So that's one of my, these are my 2 big things I like to do.
You're a very busy woman.
I am, but I love, hate that word busy, but I do, yeah, I'll take
Stay
it.
engaged.
I'll take it. I'm engaged, right?
So before we close,
Yes.
Is there a question, again, do you wish that I had asked that I hadn't asked or haven't asked? Because I want to be sure we get all the good stories you have to tell.
Oh, well, how did I meet my husband?
Well, very good.
That's right. Well, we'll be married 50 years in January.
Congratulations. Wow.
And we met on the steps at FIT. I was doing a modeling thing, and he was a photographer.
Oh, how wonderful.
So we've been together ever since, and that's, I don't know, just kind of clicked.
I love it.
Things have changed through the years a little bit here and there.
course.
Of course, but it's just great, and he's very enthusiastic about my career. He was always supportive too, also. And my
Was he a
sister as well.
student? Excuse
Yes,
me.
he was a student
very good.
of photography,
Right.
and I was a student of design, but I was modeling in some of the other students' shows. So we just kind of met, and
That's
it was
awesome.
romantic.
Did he go on to be a professional photographer?
Oh, yes, he did. Yes, he
Very
did. He
cool.
started out with albums. He did Jim Morrison,
Oh,
the
my
cover of Jim
goodness.
Morrison. I met Jim Morrison. That's a whole other. So we kind of hung out in that whole venue in the East Village then, and it was just so wonderful. And then he became more of a fashion photographer. Then he joined Macy's for a long time as their key person with the windows, and just he's very
wow.
talented in his own right. Yes.
I'm so glad you brought him up.
Oh yeah, I would get killed if I didn't. So no, but I mean it. So it's been great.
Well, may we
Yeah.
ask his name?
Mark, M-A-R-C, Block.
Block.
Yes.
Very cool. Well, Professor Block, I cannot
Thank
thank you
you.
enough for joining us today. This is going to add measurably to our catalog of oral histories, and I know researchers are going to be entranced by what you have to say.
I have probably more stories, so I'm here
Okay.
if you want to know more.
Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for
Yes.
having me.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye.